So I realized that I needed to share with you some news, some actions I took since I actually told you when I did it. If you're new here, check this video out after you watch this video. But your girl paid off her kid's car. So back in 2020, or the end of 2020, and it went into 2021, even though it shouldn't have to, I purchased my kid a car. Just some background story. My son had a paid off car. His car was hit. It was totaled. We was in the middle of that situation that we all know about that happened 3 years ago. And at that time, car prices, well, used car prices were through the roof. And at the moment, I didn't know until we received the payout for my son's car, and I tried to buy something similar price range. And funny enough, I should have known, because literally we got paid out for that particular vehicle more than what we paid for it. I took out the loan. I decided to go through a credit union. I do not like going through the dealerships. I think it gives me more leverage, especially when you're buying a used car. Now, maybe if you're buying a new car, that's a different situation. I ended up going through the credit union to get a loan. This is why I like having credit unions in my pocket. I always try to have a credit union in my bank accounts for things like this. So basically what I did, the loan was taken out officially, right? Because I had a pre-approval with check in hand. It was officially in effect January of 2021, even though I purchased this car on December 31st, 2020. That's a whole nother situation. It was a 5-year loan. Now, I set up a 5-year loan on purpose. I typically do not like to take 5 years to pay off cars, but I set it up on purpose, and here's why. In the midst of what was going on around that time frame, even though like there was all these hopes and stuff, we didn't really know. And initially, you know, we were given like, oh, this will be gone by winter and stuff like that. And at this point, it was winter and it was in full effect. And especially in the place in which I lived, we were seeing the effects of it on a daily basis. And so I wanted to set it up where I had time to pay it off if I couldn't pay it off quickly. So my initial thought, if you saw that video, was I was going to pay it off in a year. And I could have, but that's not the way my brain works. In all truthfulness, that's not the way my brain works. I wanted to make sure that we had a significant amount of money set to the side outside of our emergency fund for certain things, just because we really didn't know what was happening. So what I did was I definitely set aside money to pay off this car quickly. And that's the first tip I can give you. I went into it knowing how quickly I could actually pay the vehicle off. So even though I had a 5-year loan, I knew that I could pay the vehicle off easily if I went hard in 1 year. I knew I could do it in 1 year. I also was like, okay, if all else, if I don't do it in a year, if something happens, like all else fails, I am going to pay it off in this time frame. So my thought process was, do not let it go longer than 2.5 years, maybe 3. But that was my thought process. So in order to do that, I had to take the numbers. So I basically took the amount that I owed. I had the interest rate. I created my own minimum monthly payment. So there was a minimum monthly payment on the car loan. I knew that monthly payment was not going to get me to paying it off quickly. So I had a set monthly amount. So if you ever seen any of my budgeting videos, no matter what, I was paying $250. And from the beginning, what that did was that put me ahead as far as when the loan would be done, right? Now, when it comes to car loans, when you pay extra money towards them, they try to kind of keep you on track. So the first month I paid $250, they were like, oh, your next payment is this amount. Basically, they were taking my payment down so that I would stay on track for the 5 years. I was only going to take advantage of that if something drastic happened and I couldn't afford to be able to make my minimum monthly payment, but my budget always accommodated for my minimum monthly payment. So no matter what, we didn't deviate from that amount. Also, because I have other streams of income, I use like the amount that I paid myself out from them other streams of income to put extra payments on top of this loan. I also use parts of any windfalls, or I should say portions of any windfalls, and I put towards this loan. So, you know, bonuses, taxes, anything like that, I put that towards the loan so that it could be paid off a little bit faster. And I will say that even though I could have paid it off earlier, if you've been following me, you know I still lived my life. Like, I still had a life. Once, I would say by the end of, I would say by mid-2022, I was like, okay, are we gonna pay off this loan? But then I was just like, you know what, we're gonna just continue putting like chunks towards the loan, and then I'll finally get to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna pay it off. And earlier this year, well, mid-year, like July, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pay this loan off. But I'm so, if you've been here, you know that I have this thing about pulling money out of savings. The Lord needs to work on me with that because it's ridiculous. But anyway, I have this thing about pulling money out of savings. So I was trying to figure out, like, or not really trying to, I didn't want to pull the money out of savings. I knew I could pay off the car, and I had the money to pay off the car. I didn't want to use that money to pay off the car. So I decided I was going to use some of that money to pay off the car, but then I also was going to use money I had coming in from a couple of projects to pay off the car, because I don't know, it just feels different when you don't have it. I don't know about you. You let me know in the comments below, like, when you ain't had it that long, it don't feel the same like if you spend it. Whereas if it's been in my savings and I've been seeing that balance, I'm like, you want me to spend that money? I don't. Why? So I used money from a project, and I decided, I was like, you know what? Once I get the net, what I'm going to pay myself from this, I am going to pay this car off. And so I took some money out, put a lump on that loan. And it wasn't a lot. It really wasn't much left. I could have paid this car off. Looking at it now, I'm like, why could you not just pull that money out and pay the car off earlier? But I paid it off. So the car is now paid off. I'll probably like put a screenshot of like the little loan balance here. But what I would say, like, if you do have to find yourself in a situation where you do have to go in debt, and I know like there were people like, oh, you didn't have to do that. What that tells me is your financial situation and my financial situation, along with my family situations, are not the same. Period. Because if I go more into it, I think in that video, I didn't want to have to buy another car while he was in school. If you find yourself in a situation where you have to go into debt in order to cover an expense for something that you were not expecting, I think the first thing you should do is know that you're gonna like commit that no matter what, we're paying this off early. It's not going to be paid off in that time frame in which it's set out there. So again, like, I picked a 5-year loan on purpose. It was going to take 5 years. It wasn't going to take 3. Also, have a set amount that you're going to pay regardless, like no matter what. So even when we had some emergencies come up, and I think I've talked about some of those emergencies, like unexpected expenses and stuff like that, no matter what, my budget was always set that I was going to pay that set amount, that minimum amount for that loan. So no matter what, I was always going to get ahead on that loan. I was always going to be ahead, because I never was going to pay what they said as the minimum payment to keep me on that 5-year plan. That wasn't the case. But what that also does is, if you do have a bad month and you need to maybe pay that for 1 month, maybe 2, not continuously, then it gives you options. And then lastly, like, you definitely, when you're going into it, even if it's kind of like one of those rush situations. In my case, it wasn't. There's definitely lots of calculators out there, so you can kind of figure out what works for you and how you can make it work for you. And so that's what I did in my case. Besides the fact that I also have my own financing, like I said, I always go in with my own financing. I could see maybe if you were buying like a brand new car, maybe different. I'm excited. I definitely paid this car off like 26 months early. I would say one of the things that I did to kind of hinder myself in this process was not take that money out of my savings. But we all know this is who I am. I've talked about it multiple times on this channel. That's why personal finance is personal. But if you are looking to pay off some debts early, trying to figure out a plan, then definitely check out this video right here, and I will see you next week with an all new one.